so now that we're on this part, we've got the data for after oil-water separation. We're going to move on to something called sand filtration, which is another physical separation. We're going to have sand and gravel, and we're going to actually be able to pour the liquid through and let gravity pull the liquid down through sand and gravel, and all these little chunks and particles and maybe even some leftover oils that we have in there are going to stick to the sand and gravel, and hopefully more of the water will come out. So we'll set up that apparatus in just a second, and we'll let that go and see how that helps our physical separation lab. So now I have a container of gravel and sand, and what I'm going to do is take a simple styrofoam cup, and I'm going to put a layer of gravel at the bottom of my cup. You may be wondering, what's gravel going to do? You can see the gravel inside of there. All right. I'm then going to take spoonfuls of sand, which is a lot finer. I'm going to take 2 scoops of sand. Okay. I'm then also going to get a little bit of water to moisten it so that this kind of sticks together, so that when we pour our water sample through, all right, we won't get all that liquid just stuck to the sand. So give me one moment. I'm going to get a little bit of water on this and we'll be good. Let's take a little bit of water and we're just going to wet the sand just a little bit. There we go. By just making it a little bit wet, it's going to be more likely that we'll let the water that we are using run through. Okay, so it's just slightly have a little moisture in there. Now, how's this going to work? Well, we want our nice clean beaker. We're going to put this on top and pour the liquid into the cup, but it will just sit in the cup if we do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to poke a couple small tiny holes in the bottom of this styrofoam cup. And by doing that, gravity will slowly start to pull the water out from the cup. So now we have our layer of gravel, layer of sand, and some holes at the bottom, and I'm going to slowly pour our dirty water into this sand trap. And you can start to see, hopefully on the bottom a little bit, some of the water coming through. Now what this sand and gravel filtration is going to do, hopefully you can see that the water's coming through. Even though it looks brown still in that, it's slowly starting to pull out the little pieces of solids. So any of those little chunks that we saw inside of that liquid, as gravity pulls the water down, some of those chunks are going to stick to the sand and gravel, and then just liquid comes out. So in the end, hopefully we have no longer any chunks left. Maybe a few little grains of sand, but none of these unidentified chunks, whatever they are. They're black and brown in that. So we're going to let this sit for about 5-10 minutes and let this naturally settle out so that we can strain this solution so that we end up with just some slightly cleaner water. So we'll give that a few minutes and then we'll go from there. And we are back, and as you can see, our sand and gravel filtration has let out all of our liquid water to the bottom, but all these little chunks that we had earlier, you'll see are missing. So I'm going to move this over to here, and let's measure out how much water we actually have left. So we're going to fill up our graduated cylinder, and when we measure our graduated cylinder, we always want to read it at eye level. And we are now at 80 milliliters. So we went down a few milliliters, which is natural. When we physically separate things out, we're going to take away some of the volume. But now after the sand filtration, the volume is 80 milliliters. Let's take a look at that color. Still pretty much similar, that yellowish brown color. What about clarity? I would say it's still pretty cloudy too. So cloudy is definitely a good answer. As far as odor, ooh, there's even less odor. There's a slight small odor, but not like it used to be. It's much better. The presence of oil, there's still no oil in our sample now that we've taken it out from earlier in our first step. And we have no solids either. So now if under presence of solids in your data table, you can say no as well. So we're doing good. We've knocked out solids, and we've knocked out some of the odor, and we've knocked out the oil.